Hello, my friend. Existential courage, according to Jean-Paul Sartre. Early Jean-Paul Sartre and later Jean-Paul Sartre. For the early Sartre, of course, existential courage is what you need in order to deal with the realization that human beings are condemned to be free. We are condemned to be free, utterly and completely. And therefore we need to, in a universe stripped of a God, stripped of meaning, stripped of a fixed human nature, in that human universe, we need to learn to be responsible for everything we do and say, and therefore what we become. Sartre says this means standing up to some terrible anxieties that we will experience. First, l'angoisse, anguish, the anxiety of your absolute freedom, not the fear of something external, but the realization that absolutely nothing, not your past, not your habits, not your social roles, can ever force you to act in a certain way or to be a certain way. You are free. You are determining who you become this minute and the next. And so you build your own future. And that gives you a sense of anguish. Also, you will deal with what he called le délaissement, the forlornness, the having been abandoned by the gods because they don't exist. We are completely alone in the universe. No moral compass, no cosmic blueprint, no certainty, no external signs to guide us. We make it up as we go along. We are the one interpreting any signs. We are the one deciding what happens. Then thirdly, you have to deal with le désespoir, the despair, the sober realization that you can only reckon with what depends on your free will, and that the universe is utterly indifferent to what you desire, what you plan, and what you do. That's quite extreme, and it means extreme courage is required. But because it is so difficult, most people flounder in mauvaise foi, bad faith. What that means is that they live as if things are determined, as if they are certain, as if they are set in their ways. We act lying to ourselves to escape the burden of freedom. We treat ourselves as if we are an object, as if we are completely made of facticity. We think we have no choice. That's just the way we are. That's just what happens. That's just what we have to do. We hide behind the social role. We pretend that's all we are. And that guides us. We deny external constraints. We deny transcendence. We deny that we live in a world that is made up of what we do, and that we cannot be completely in control, and yet we have to make it work with the cards we have been dealt with. Real existential courage, then, is about affirming a pursuit of authentic being, the bravery of dispensing with the lies of bad faith, denying our death, or pretending we're only a small thing when we can be so much more. It's taking up the challenges in life and not complain about it. The courageous person admits that they are always choosing, even when they choose not to choose, because that is still a choice. They accept radical responsibility for the consequences of their actions, and they refuse to blame their upbringing, genetics, other people, circumstances. They take it on the chin. So then we move forward a little bit and we see how human beings, as they create something out of nothing, have to get out of this idea that they can just live in passive despair because everything is so negative or there is no God. For Sartre, existential courage is to engage with life, just the way it is, and to realize that what you become is your doing, and that you are never anything other than the sum of your actions. Meaning is forged, created out of actions, out of choices, and it takes tremendous courage to engage with that world, with that life, that way of being. The later Sartre sees this more and more as a social and political creative project where we live with others in an engaged way, reinventing values against the blank canvas of the universe, and validating our own lives by the choices we make with others, and with others in a way that makes sense, because now in his later work, for instance in Critique of a Dialectical Reason, Sartre's emphasis shifts so much. In Being and Nothingness, it was very much about the individual choices. Now it becomes about choosing yourself as part of a collective and have the historical courage to revolt against systemic oppression and to work with others to do that. So confronting the practical inert, which is confronting the things that are the way they are, is, for instance, confronting the fact of scarcity, the reality that resources are limited and that we are in competition in relation to them. And therefore we have to find fair ways of sharing things out. We have to find fair ways of sharing out food and other resources. We have to stop allowing some people to starve or be exploited or dehumanized by economic and social systems, and create a fairer way. This is about going from the individual state of living to the praxis. The praxis is to practice the values you want to affirm and become part of the group infusion instead of being in seriality. When you're an individual in a serial kind of relationship with others, you're just a cog in a machine, a number. When you become part of a group infusion, you see how humanity needs to work together to get away from that soul-crushing seriality and to take a leap of existential courage into the group. This is Sartre's commitment to communism, quite extreme and lacking in insight into what was happening really in the USSR, for instance. Like Heidegger, who went to the right, Sartre went to the left, and both of them were quite extreme about it. So this is what has undermined existential thinking, because people have become estranged from it, alienated from these extreme political choices. Nevertheless, there is a lot in Sartre's engagement and in his understanding how individuals reinterpret their own circumstances in order to change themselves and change the world around them as part of that process. That metamorphosis is what Sartrean courage seeks to achieve, and there is a lot of interesting stuff to learn in the later Sartre. In his book on Flaubert, for instance, or Jean Genet, where he shows you how from this narrow personal freedom we come to a much more deeply engaged, lived freedom, where we reinvent ourselves as part of a society, and where the stakes are very high, and it matters that we live in this courageous, engaged way.